Hello everybody, welcome back. Music theory can be a divisive subject for guitar players. Some of us swear by it, some of us hate it, some of us just do the bare minimum to get by. But the truth is that in music theory and the history and the discoveries of music theory lie a lot of very interesting things we can use in our day-to-day playing. Even if you don't go really deep with it, you can still reap the benefits. So today I would like to give you 5 examples of how music theory can provide you with some very unusual or at least interesting or at least useful ways of going about playing the guitar. Even if you don't know anything about theory, these 5 will be easy to apply for you no matter your level. Once I teach them to you, you'll be able to use them in your playing, and it will certainly elevate it to a certain degree. And if you then want to discover more, of course, I'll be happy to oblige. So without further ado, let's begin. The first bit of music theory I often see neglected by guitar players is how to harmonize a scale. Today we'll talk about major scales, but of course you'll then be able to apply to any scale you're working on. The idea of harmonizing a major scale is that once you decide on a key for a major scale in today's case, you should know all the chords that belong to that key, because if you want to accompany the scale, you have to play the right chords. It might have happened to you that maybe you go to a guitar lesson, or maybe you have students, or maybe you're in a band and the song is in a certain key, like maybe C major, and you know your C major scales. Maybe you learned your cage system and then the song moves to A and you can just go down to A and improvise in A. And the difference between C major and A major is 3 notes. So there's 3 sharps in A major. But we guitar players, we can just move our fingers and we don't even have to know about it, right? Because you can just move the same position. As a matter of fact, you get down 1 fret from C major that has no sharps and you end up with 5 sharps in B major. And you might say, well, what do I care? You know, if the song is in a certain key, I'll just play the right position. Well, what happens if instead of soloing all the time, somebody asks you to accompany them as they solo or as they sing? Then you have to know what chords belong to all of these keys. And this is usually done with this evil thing here, the circle of fifths. But that might be a bit too much for some of you, so we'll get rid of it and do it an easier way. Let's say we're in the key of C major and our notes are C, D, E, F, G, A, B. We all know this. Now, over the C, the D, the E, the F, the G, the A, and the B, I want to build a chord that agrees with the scale. All that means is that my chords will have to be made up of only notes of the scale, only natural notes, no sharps and no flats. And if I do it, and I spare you the details, but they're here if you want to learn them in the triad lesson, then you'll end up with this. We have C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, B diminished, which some of you might not know, not very useful in the beginning, and then C major again. And more important than understanding C major, D minor, and so on, is to actually give them a number, a Roman number. It's a degree. So on each degree, we have major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished. And this, now that you have it, will work in any key. Let me give an example. If instead of C major, I play D major, this scale here has 2 sharps. And as long as you have this little table with you, you just write it down, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, and apply the same exact chords. Major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished, and you'll have the correct sequence to play in the key of D. So if tomorrow your singer wants to sing in E, and you go like, wow, E is a bunch of sharps, I don't know what I'm doing, just simply go through the scale, and you can play any combination. It's better not to talk about this while you do it. There you go. You can play any combination of all these chords and you'll have a song in that key. So that's one of the most important things that I see a lot of guitar players neglect, and maybe the easiest thing of today, but still very interesting. So let's move on now to how we can modify this a little bit and create some very interesting outside sounds. Now, I know some of you already knew how to harmonize a major scale, and if you've practiced that for a while and you've used it in your playing, you might also understand that these progressions made only with chords of a key tend to become sometimes a bit samey. Some of them sound great, but they have a certain sound that you've heard on countless records, and music theory has searched and looked for and found through centuries many ways of expanding our diatonic chord progression. And one way is using what's called non-diatonic chords, chords that come from other keys or that come from modifying certain notes. And I'm going to show you two of them today, which are extremely easy to play and easy to remember, and once you learn them, you can just use them anytime you want. So the first one is the minor fourth, which means that in any major scale, once you build your chords, you can change the fourth chord from major to minor. In the key of C, it would be C major and F minor. Sounds beautiful. Instead of the good old C major, F major. Right? This sounds very normal. With minor, it sounds still beautiful, but certainly richer. And you can use it anytime you want. In a major scale, you can change it for the minor fourth. One thing to keep in mind, this chord here has a note, A flat in this case, that is not part of the key. So as you improvise over it, make sure that what you play sounds good. You might have to skip the A for that moment, but you can just play it by ear and navigate on top of this. Okay, this chord has a tendency to resolve back to the 1. And it's used in many creative ways. These long progressions where the F minor really comes to life. So F minor instead of F major, minor fourth instead of major fourth. That's my first suggestion. There's another one that comes from kind of fixing that ugly diminished chord we have on the 7th degree. As we said earlier, in the key of C, the 7th chord is a B diminished, which especially in triad form, it does get better with the 7th, but in triad form, it just doesn't sound too pleasant, and it's kind of a wasted chord. As a matter of fact, if you play around with what we said earlier a little while and create your own chord progressions, you'll see that you won't be using the diminished too much. And so how can we maybe make it a bit more useful? Well, the beautiful thing about a diminished chord is that if you lower the root 1/2 step, you find a major chord on that note. So in the key of C major, instead of playing B diminished, we're going to lower the B down to B flat. That's why it's called the flat 7 chord. And we have a wonderful B flat major, which has a strange sound. It reminds you a little bit of a subdominant, which means kind of an F-ish sound. Now with the B flat. It doesn't sound the same, of course, but it has that same amount of energy of push towards the root. Not extreme, but still it wants to go back. And it's a very pleasant round sound, and you can implement it into any progression. Let me demonstrate it for you. If I start from C, maybe I'll go C, A minor, F, and G. Let me switch the F for a B flat. A minor, B flat, G. You can still hear the B flat, then goes up to G, and then it resolves. So it's the same effect, but a different sound, and they can be mixed and matched, of course. B flat. You know, you don't have to sacrifice the F for the B flat. They can coexist. Make sure you remember that we're adding a B flat now to a key that doesn't have it. So anytime you use the flat 7 chord, you have to be mindful that as you improvise in the key, you might get this dissonance there. So you might want to just skip the B in your improvisation for a while until you get out of the B flat major chord. But it's certainly a wonderful chord. You'll hear it in many, many, many songs out there, and you can start using it for your own. Kind of related with number 2, our third music theory concept is also involved in creating more interesting chord progressions and therefore melodies, because it's all connected. And this concept is called secondary dominance. And it deals with 7th chords, so I'm going to use 7th chords in this example. If you're not familiar with them, let me suggest this video here that has basically every single guitar chord out there, and you can just go to the right chapter and learn a few of them and come back, or simply just follow these little tabs I'm going to post on this very video if you want to get introduced to the concept right now. Let's start with a very, very simple chord progression, only 2 chords, and they are C major 7th, which we'll play here, and the next one is D minor 7th. All these chords, of course, belong to the key, so they're only made up of notes of the key. And so we have our 1, we play 2 bars, and then 2 bars of the 2. It doesn't sound bad, of course, but it doesn't really move too much. And if I'm improvising on top, I might need a bit more extra tension and more interest if I want to support my melody. And so the secondary dominant concept is the following. Before any chord, any diatonic chord, we can use its own 5 chord in a dominant 7th nature. What does this all mean? It's very simple, actually. I'm going from C to D. D is the 2nd chord of my C major scale. So when I look at the 2 here, the D minor 7th, I can momentarily imagine that it's the 1, and if the D is the 1, what will be its 5? And it's as simple as counting D, E, F, G, A, and therefore if I build the dominant chord on A, it will resolve beautifully to the 2, to the D minor 7th. Let me play it again for you. Let's play C major 7th, but the 2nd bar, A 7th, right? Again, C, A. Now the A 7th shouldn't be there. It has a C sharp, it just doesn't fit with the key, but because it resolves so strongly to the 2, we can make it work beautifully in a progression. And we can take this a bit further, yeah? So let's give you a more complex chord progression, still extremely simple and diatonic. We're gonna play C major 7th, to E minor 7th, to D minor 7th, to G 7th, and back to C. Very normal. Now we want to add a bit of movement, so let's go all the way, and before each of these chords, let's build the secondary dominant. So I'm in C, the next chord is E minor 7th, and so the 5 chord of E, E, F, G, A, B, it's a B 7th, right? Sounds out there because it has notes that are not part of the key, but as soon as I go to the E, it comes down and it sounds beautiful. Then before the D, as we said, I'm going to stick in a A 7th, again, non-diatonic. And then check this out, before the G 7th, which is diatonic, I'm going to build its own 5, G, A, B, C, D. You see how easy it is? So I can play a D 7th before the G 7th. Now, half of these chords now are not diatonic, so they should sound bad, they should sound weird, they should sound out there, but check out the full progression. If I were to ask you which ones are out there, you might not even know because it all sounds so cohesive. But both not both, more than that, the B 7th, the A 7th, and the D 7th, they're not part of the key. They have strange notes in them which shouldn't fit. So this is the power of the secondary dominant chords, and you can start using them right now in your own progressions by simply counting up to the 5th of any chord that is diatonic, that is part of the key, and putting a 7th chord or even just a major chord before it. I won't go any deeper into this. Make sure you explore it for yourself and you'll find some beautiful sounds. Let's move on to number 4. Now for tip number 4, let's move on to scales, and let's see how we can maybe not improve but modify a very common scale to make it just a bit more interesting, and that is the minor scale. The minor scale after the major scale, certainly the most common there is, and it sounds like this. It's a bit sad, it's a bit dark, but it's a beautiful sound. But if you compare it to the sound of major, besides the fact that one is, it's kind of sunny and the other one, it's more broody. The main difference, if you notice, is at the end of the scale. The major scale, when it gets to the end, it elevates, it pushes towards the root. Check it out. You see, it wants to resolve, it wants to go home. The minor scale, on the other hand, it could go home or not. You know, it's like we don't really care. And it makes the sound of the scale softer and maybe mellower. But on the other hand, it's a problem when you want to resolve something. If you play rock music, it's almost all of it in minor or metal or, you know, different styles, and it just doesn't want to seem to resolve. And this has been a problem that had to be faced long ago in classical music. And the solution for it is the harmonic minor scale. If you want to know all about the minor scales, including the harmonic, check out this video. But the idea is this. You take a regular minor scale and you borrow the note of the major scale that pushed, which is the 7th. Which means that once we get to the 7th note, we're going to raise it a half step for this effect. Now, in classical music, the truth is that people use this ascending to solve that push problem, but then descending would return to the regular minor scale. But in rock music, and with the whole neoclassical movement and, you know, the power metal movement, now it seems to have become a sound that we look for. And we use it both ascending and descending. Any minor scale you have, I just played E because I could give you a root to play against. Take the last note and raise it a half step. For our 5th and final music theory concept today, we'll talk about the modes. The modes is a huge subject and we won't get into all of them, although again, if you want to, here's a video on every scale, kind of, and you'll be able to, you know, really learn about them and understand how they're built and their sound. But the idea behind the modes can be simplified greatly, maybe not ideally, but certainly in a useful manner, by seeing modes as a major scale starting on different degrees. And by that I mean that if I take the C major scale and play it from C to C, I get the sound, certainly, of a major scale. Right? Very simple. Now, if I play the same exact notes, but instead of starting from C, I start from D, this is a different scale, because my ear now hears D as home, and then the distances and the intervals for the notes are now different. It's a minor sound, has a strange sound there. And this is a mode, it's a relative mode. And the scale that starts on the 2nd note of a major scale is called Dorian. And then if I start from E, I get a different sound. I'm playing the same notes of C major, but starting from E, giving you that anchor in the note E, and it has a totally different sound. Right? Which is called Phrygian. And then from F, it's called Lydian, and from G, it's called Mixolydian, and from A, it's called Minor or Aeolian, and it's Locrian from B. Now, what this means is that even if you only know how to play a C major scale, truly you do know all 7 modes. You might not know exactly how to use them, but you know them. And so I wanted to do something today. I would like you to record yourself playing a C major chord for just a minute, put it in your looper, and play a C major scale on top of it. Improvise freely, it doesn't have to be great. Right? All you have to do is just play, but as you hear it on top of that C chord, it will sound like a major scale. Now I want you to play the same exact thing, not the same notes in that order, but the same scale, exactly the C major scale, but do it now over a loop of D minor. Now play your C major scale over this chord. Same frets as before, same note. And it will sound totally different, like a whole different world. And even though you're playing the same notes, you're anchoring them on the second degree, which is D. Now play E minor. Play a loop of that, and again play the C major scale. And it will sound, as you can hear, totally different again. Now, what chords should you record your loops at? Point 1 in today's video, those are the 7 chords. C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, and if you want, B diminished. And you'll get a taste for the sound of all 7 modes. Now, if you know a bit more about theory, you can certainly go deeper with all these 5 subjects. For example, the secondary dominants, once you understand what they are, you might certainly ask yourself, what scale should I use over all of these dominant chords, and that gets you into really deep waters. If you want to go there, I'll be happy to oblige. And the same thing with the modal interchange ones. What's that B flat? What does it mean? What scale can I use over it? How do I modify my regular diatonic scale so that it fits? And this goes for everything. The modes can go really deep. There are modes of several scales. Even the pentatonic scales have their modes, and I'll be happy to go over all of them. That's what YouTube is for. There has been some comments that my videos maybe are a bit too long and I speak too much or talk too much, but that's what these videos are for. They're for me to transmit sometimes in real depth, sometimes a bit shallower waters, but still transmit these concepts. And I don't know if they work for you specifically right now, but they might work for somebody else and maybe for you in the future. So I hope you appreciate that. If you do, please do like, subscribe, and comment, and maybe spread it to your friends who also play the guitar and love music. Thank you so much as always for being there. You want to check out my Patreon, it's down below, records, books, all kinds of stuff, and I'll see you very soon. Bye bye.